Well, it's definitely sunnier today, but it's not necessarily warmer.
But it is drier.
Drier.
After two miles in that little snowstorm, I was wet. This jacket was wet and cold. So this is much better.
Much better.
Even though the flag is flapping furiously.
So standing out in the cold and snow, one of the things that we had talked about was homesteading and some of the family history aspects of that.
Right.
Will you talk some more about homesteading and family history?
I would love to. Without
maybe too much detail, like how many times a day they brush their teeth with sand, or just some detail, but not the...
Don't flesh it out completely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. In 1903.
Yes.
My father's parents came to Sheridan County, Wyoming, and homesteaded on Prairie Dog Creek. And part of the house is still there after 120 years.
As you say that, what's got me excited is, what did they build it out of? How did they cut the boards? Where did they get the boards? But we keep going. Sorry.
Oh, okay. They went up in the bighorns and got the wood and brought it back down and cut it up just like, well, they didn't cut it up like you did, but they had a cross saw and cut it up and built the house. And my dad...
So the bighorns are the mountain range that's there close.
Yes, that's where all the pine trees come from. And so homesteading on Prairie Dog Creek.
Was that close to town, or how far away from town is it?
Oh, maybe 4 miles.
4 miles.
3 or 4 miles.
So those winters would be similar, comparable.
Yes.
What did they sustain themselves with? They didn't have a Costco. Were they growing all their own food? Were they putting up hunting, putting up cows, animals?
Well,
do they have a root cellar? I'm trying to wrap my head around. I struggle with the logistics that I have with modern conveniences of putting away food for the family, and I'm blown away thinking of how people in 1903 would have gotten that done.
That's a lot of questions.
Sorry, too many. Okay, let's slow things down a little. Talk more.
Okay.
Too many questions? Sorry about that.
Whoa.
You know what? I was trying to help the conversation out. And
he gets started and he just doesn't know where to stop. Okay, the original reason they came to Wyoming to get this homestead was they had a German coach stud, and they raised horses for remount. For
no, say that again. They had...
It was a German coach stud.
And
he was a
big horse.
A big horse.
That's one big horse.
A big horse. Yes, beyond a quarter horse. He would be a
good like 3/4 of a horse. 2/4 of a horse, not just a quarter horse.
See,
too many questions.
Too many questions.
Sorry.
And they raised horses. My dad was a tremendous horseman.
Yeah.
And just prior to them coming, they had their first child, a little girl, Thelma, actually died of pneumonia.
How old would she have been?
About 8 months. She was just a little bit of a kid. But so when they came, then they had 3 more children, and the youngest was my father, and they all lived healthily. And my Grandma Cox, I'm sure, had a big garden, and they...
have you seen pictures? Were there any photos from that era?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
In the picture, is there, pictures of the homestead and...
Where the buildings were?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I sometime, when we got a minute, I would love to see that.
Okay, and I have a picture of about 1927. My dad would just be out of high school, and he has a big Tom Mix hat on, and he has this tremendously big elk.
So they hunted
They
for
hunted.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hunted. Yes, but but there was such a community feeling because other people came at that same time and had homesteads, and so I'm sure when my grandmother went into labor and had babies, she had other friends come over
And help.
and help, and
it's
I'm sure they helped build those barns and corrals, and they had to work together to make it work.
well, I feel that way here. I didn't know my neighbors in the city that lived right next door, nor did I want to know my neighbors.
And you didn't need to.
And I didn't need to. But it's interesting that here, if I see my neighbor out, I run right over and want to help out and want to engage. There's this feeling that there's this uncertainty that I may need some help, and I want to stack up some brownie points so that if I need to call on a favor later on, that I can. There's a sense of we're in this together.
Yeah.
We need to help each other out. If there's a cold night and my power goes out,
Yeah.
I need to come knock on your door, I want to know that we have a relationship, and that when I knock on that door, you're not going to be surprised to see me.
And with women, it's a social thing, an emotionally healthy thing, but it's also like, how do you use your sourdough starter? I always kill mine and then I start over again. How do you make yours live so well and it tastes good every morning? How do you do that? You just ask questions, you talk.
So there's a sharing of information,
Right.
a helping.
Yes, absolutely.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know that I've ever done a sourdough start. I'm going to have to add that to my list of things to get familiar with.
Okay, now when you went to the mountains,
As a kid?
oh yeah, as a little kid, and for many years as a little kid, your gram gave you the sourdough pancakes every morning.
So
You didn't know that.
I didn't know that, but whew.
So-
you can tell by my waistline. I've seen a few pancakes.
you
I'm no
enjoyed
stranger.
it.
I'm no stranger to pancakes. But I had no idea that she was that those were sourdough.
Well,
Was she doing a sourdough start every night, where she would just leave it?
she had the little crock. You've probably seen it 1,000 times. Was there? It had a little lid on it. Sometimes when she would put more flour and water in it, it would bubble up, and this
That was part of the fermentation process.
Yeah, and it would flow over on the counter, and you'd probably see this goopy stuff, and you'd think, what's my gram making over there?
What is that concoction? What is
Whoa!
that? What potion is she mixing up?
Oh, and it kind of would smell like, really good beer, but oh, it was just, oh man, it just gives a fabulous flavor, and it gives that yeasty flour leavening, and so we'll get that started right away.
I need you to teach me
Okay.
all of these things.
All right, absolutely, because and then when we were done with the pancakes, you'd take them out to feed the squirrels, and you wanted to catch the squirrels, and so you go into Grandma and say, hey, I need some pie pans so I can catch the squirrels. And your grandma and granddad would just laugh at you. You just thought you were so cute. So you could take your pie pans out and make little traps.
If only I could use my powers to do good.
Oh!
I'm gonna catch some squirrels.
Yeah, you even
I
tried to...
I should have been inside learning how to make delicious pancakes.
That's
not
right.
outside chasing the squirrels around.
That's right, but you use the pancakes in your own way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your kids will too.
Yeah.
There'll be no doubt that will come around full circle, and then you can laugh at them.
Okay.
Yeah, you even tried to catch a martin once. And that's a great story too, but...
Well, tell me more about the homestead at the turn of the century and that lifestyle and stories that you've heard, things that you remember, because there's a wealth of information there that I could read a bunch of books, and I might be able to abstract some of that, but you have, just like they had, a lot more of those skills that are very useful in this environment.
Well, a big garden, started a orchard right away, had
So
apples.
as we look out here, I've got tons of dirt. I got plenty of dirt.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got lots of water.
Yes.
But I got sunshine for about 5 minutes. The growing season is like 90 days. But if they did it and they were able to feed their family, then I should be able to do the same.
I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
Thank you. Oh, this pollen out here, and yes, but you can grow a lot in 90 days because you have it comes up early in the morning and it goes to bed late at night. So
you get
a longer growing day,
more sunshine in a 24-hour period.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I know we're going to get frost, but they would have had to fight that same issue, and certainly with a lot less technology.
Yes.
Or I'm sure they didn't have polymer plastics to make greenhouses, but they must have planted things.
No, but they had extra hay and straw that they put around them, and maybe that's better.
Yeah, I'll bet you're right.
So
I'll bet you're right. So those are the tips and tricks that I need to learn and master in order to not only live here, but thrive here.
Yes, and a root cellar, because you put things below the ground and then they don't freeze, like big baskets of potatoes that taste mighty good about Christmas time.
You know how I love potatoes. I love me some potatoes.
Oh, he loves him some potatoes and gravy on top. Woo.
I think it'd be interesting to go back through some of those scrapbooks and some of those photos and look at where they put their root cellar and what other outbuildings they built that had a priority. Was that a woodshed, or was a barn more of a priority?
For them, a barn was a definite priority, to get that hay in and get it to where you could keep it clean and safe.
Yeah.
Get those horses fed, because that was their money. That was how they made their money, was selling horses.
So horses were the main priority.
Yeah.
But do you think that actual dollars passed through their hands, or was it a barter system where maybe they traded a horse for some cows and sheep? Or do you think it was like me, where everything I do, it's dollars. It gets turned into dollars, and then I use those dollars to then turn those dollars into something else?
No, I think they would have bartered more than we are used to bartering in this day and age.
I would like to do more bartering because I think there's greater valuable. There's greater value. There's greater value in those valuables, and it seems like as I turn things into dollars, that doesn't necessarily translate. If I go over to somebody's house and I deliver a cord of firewood, and then they give me $150, then I take that to Walmart. I don't necessarily get $150 worth of value. I don't get a cord of wood worth of value out of Walmart.
That's right.
As opposed to if I took a cord of wood over to somebody's house and then they gave me a bunch of chickens that then I produced eggs for the next year or two.
That's right. Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
And so I wonder if trying to avoid getting into dollars and staying in tangibles.
Well, and like I say, with a community like that, someone would have big trees on their homestead, as opposed to they had trees down by the creek.
Yes.
But not up on the hill.
So they might trade wood.
So they would trade wood. I'm sure they traded a lot, because I just hear stories of just such a community feeling. And 100 years later, they still did.
Well, that's definitely one of the things I love about this area, is that sense of community. Everybody knows that you cannot be an island out here and survive.
No.
And there's a sense of, we're all here in this environment because we like this environment, because we want to be here, and there's a kindred spirit there.